The institutions that Republicans have lost are essential for raising the next generation of political leaders. If you wonder why so many politicians, judges, CEOs, and business owners are so corrupt, look at our education system. Who do you think controls our education system? Maybe the progressive liberals? From the news you watch, from what you read about, from the teachers you meet. Whose ideals do you think are evident in public schools and higher education? Who is winning the battle in Hollywood? Public schools, higher education, and social media? Republicans are losing, and so are conservatives.
Good morning, guys. We've been talking about some fun topics, and we are going to continue our series on our domestic policies and foreign circumstances abroad and domestically. Let's talk today about our institutions. We've talked about what sheep are, what victims are, what sheepish victims are, and also what predators are. So we have a good idea of categories that we can put specific people in within our society, in our culture, but we haven't talked a ton exactly about the institutions that produce these people and why it is that we have more sheep in society than we have shepherds. Now, in a story-like style, I explained to you why it is that we end up producing more sheep than shepherds. I also explained to you that it's okay. We do have to understand that a certain percentage of people have to be met where they are, and a certain percentage of people, I believe, genuinely have some kind of mental blockade that will actually prevent them from being anything better than what they are today. You meet these people all the time. You'll meet someone who had, let's say in this situation, everything going for them. They had two parents, they had a Christian background, they had good friends, they ate well. It seems like all these things are piling up that are going to show us what kind of person this person will be. Yet what we see is an abject failure in society that contributes little to society and takes more than what they give. They're those kind of people who are always borrowing money. They're always in these bad circumstances. And let's, in this situation, think about a man who's in this kind of situation. Now, men in these kind of situations who are abject failures in society, who typically seem to fail even though they had everything going for them, I think one of the things that you'll notice is, well, they like very ugly women. And, I mean no offense by that. It's just a pattern. I think that if you go around and you observe some of the abject failures within your life who you think should be succeeding, who aren't succeeding, I think what you'll notice is they have a very odd taste in women. That's one of the first things I think that you're gonna notice about these kind of men. Now, like I said, there's all kinds of reasons this person should have been succeeding. But really, we can't just blame it all on that person. Even though that person's failure, I believe in some sense, is due to genetic factors, because I genuinely do believe that some people, because of psychological inherent reasons or physiological reasons, they will never be better than what they are. And maybe I'm saying it wrong, but what I'm saying is they're not going to reach the level of success that maybe you will reach or have the potential to reach. They're always going to be the lower 50% of society. And I think that we have to make sure not to scrutinize these kinds of people. We need the bottom 50% of society. The truth is, well, someone has to do the terrible manual labor jobs like I don't know, could be flooring, installing LVP and all that kind of stuff. Someone has to do it. It could be working at college universities as clerk, front desk offices for dental. It could be just maybe those aren't the best examples. Think of lower paying jobs that seem like, they're the jobs that you would never be okay with taking at 30 years old. Those kinds of jobs someone has to take. Not everyone can get paid 35 plus an hour. Someone has to get paid below $35 an hour. If everyone was at the same level to get paid 35, 40 bucks an hour on the average, well then, what a competitive workplace it would be. And I'm not sure how that would work out, because there wouldn't be enough jobs to pay $35 to $40 an hour. Not enough of those jobs exist. So you see, it would automatically push people down to a lower 50%. Someone has to be there. So what we're not saying is the lower 50%ers are trash to society. They contribute nothing. They are where they are because they just suck. We're not saying that. What we're not saying is we don't need those people in society. Those people are going to produce the majority of our sheep, and those people are going to work in many of the institutions that screw us over. That's not what we're saying. When we approach this subject, I think we should approach this subject with gentleness and mercy. And we should take people who are in the bottom 50% as they come. And even though we wish for those people to better themselves, we should also understand that maybe they cannot. Maybe this is the best that they can do. So maybe I shouldn't make fun of the person who's 30 years old for working at McDonald's. Maybe I shouldn't make fun of the 35-year-old man who's working at the front desk for a dental office. There's nothing wrong with those kind of jobs. The reality is not every job is as great as the next job. Only a certain percentage of people are going to get the great jobs. And that's the reality. So we mustn't think less of those who make less and of those who have a lifestyle that would make them appear lesser than us. And I think that one of the most amazing things about the Western countries is that rather than class, and I mean economic class, being the primary identifier of who you are and who you associate with, that's not that primary identifier. Rather, it's actually values and religion. Religion in first world Western countries plays such a huge role. I truly believe that it is more so of a primary identifier for who you are and who you associate with rather than economic class. And that's also one of the reasons why I think that Karl Marx was wrong. But that's a whole nother subject. So, those are some things for you to think about. So the next time you see someone coming along and you think, wow, I am just so much better than that janitor who works this job. This janitor is great at his job, but why is he 37 years old working as a janitor? Why is he not making 90, 120K a year doing something better with his life? You shouldn't think that. You should stop. We can do better than that. We need janitors. We need McDonald's workers. We need factory workers. And we need workers who are willing to take the lesser paying jobs. We need them. Someone has to do that job. You should thank someone who's willing to take the lower 50% end of the jobs so you can take the upper 50% end of the jobs. Do not criticize them. Do not ostracize them. Accept them, thank them, and see them as your equal, because they are. They truly are your equal. We should be very careful about looking at individuals in different economic situations as inferior to us. We shouldn't do that. It ruins social cohesiveness. It makes people feel like they're outcasts and like they're lesser than us. And when people begin to feel like that, they start to think, well, I shouldn't be working this job. I deserve better. I should do better. Now, those people have good reasons for this, because a lot of jobs in America are not paying what they should be. And that's not the fault of capitalism. I'm not saying that we need to raise the minimum wage. I'm saying that we need to raise the morals of the people who come forth in our society and who go into these corporations. Show me your wages, and I'll show you your board members' hearts. Now, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but those are some things that I truly want you to think about. So, if you want to consider being a better person, and yes, I think you will be a better person, the next time you have those foolish, insulting little thoughts about someone in a different economic class, stop it. Fix yourself. You see that janitor? Smile and wave. Let him know he's doing a great job. Thank you for what you do. You see the waitress who only gets paid $10 an hour, who maybe doesn't make as much tips as you think she's making? She's struggling. Be kind. Be genuine. See if you can make her night. Go out of your way. Not everyone gets to live having little to no concern about bills and how they're going to take care of their children. That's just not how it works. Now back to our sheep and our shepherds and the institutions which produce them. The reason in society, my claim is, the reason in society that we have a higher percentage of sheep right now than what we should have is, one, because we're in peace times. But the second is because of our institutions that have been taken over by Democrats. And yes, those are the Democrats that are very different from the Republicans. I told you before, Republicans and Democrats are not the same in the institutions that they support. There is a difference. I'm going to continue to show you the difference between a Republican and a Democrat, even though it's so self-evident and we both know that it exists, the difference, but you're so caught up in your little conspiracy theories lately that you just kind of go with anything. I'm going to convince you. If you're not convinced at least 50% yet, then watch my other video that is literally labeled Republicans and Democrats are not the same or different. Institution 1, the education system. The education system in many states, the closer you get to large cities, are run purely by leftists. Even in more conservative areas where you would think you're unlikely to see a leftist, they seem to just pop up in our education system. It's like you're in Kalispell, Montana, and it's like, where the hell did you come from? I mean, something like 75% of the population is conservative. How is half the school liberal? How does that make freaking sense? Okay, so our education system is a huge factor. Democrats are winning. Liberals, progressives, they are winning when it comes to the education system. They are captivating our children and they are indoctrinating them with certain ideas and ideals at a very young age. And Republicans have done little to nothing to stop it as a party. As far as individuals and parents go, you see videos all the time about these parents at school boards talking to these schools, for example, about these like LGBTQ pro books that they're reading to kids, their kids, and they're not okay with it. So Republicans as individuals are stepping up. The Republican Party as a whole has their hands tied, and they have practically no plan to do anything about it. I haven't seen the movement. Where is the movement? I would like to see it. That's our primary education system. And this is a huge institution. And if you're with me, then you know we are losing. Absolutely losing. If you've ever wondered why there's such a level of degeneracy in society, look no further than our public education systems that raise our children. Our public education system raises our children oftentimes more than we do. They spend 8 hours at school from the time they're, 6, 7 years old until they're 18 years old. We could literally take a whole episode and talk about the education system and the problem with it. But that's one institution. The next institution, believe it or not, is the workplace. Have you ever looked at your HR policies about sexual harassment and bullying and all that kind of stuff, and you look at that, you look at their policies, and even though it's a conservative company, you take a look and you're kind of like, what the hell? Wait a minute. Why does this seem like a progressive liberal's approach to HR policies? Well, because it kind of is. Now, we can't blame the progressive liberals for all of it. Republicans are bystanders in this, therefore they're liable for this. But you wonder for a second, like, wait a minute, why is what I'm reading here about what needs to happen next, or why this needs to happen, or the forms of sexual harassment in their definitions, you're kind of looking at it like, what the hell is this? How is someone overhearing me having an inappropriate conversation constituting verbal or whatever sexual harassment? Who the hell sat down and made this shit up? Look no further than your progressive liberals. This is their dream policies that they have won. They have won the HR battle in the workplace. So if you're ever a straight white male, because usually straight white males today seem to be the most heavily criticized. So if you're ever a straight white male and you're in the workplace And you're kind of like, what the hell is going on here? What? Because progressive liberals have captivated our HR institution in our workplace. And guess what? We spend just as much time at our workplace, if not more, as our kids spend at school. And even though we're adults and we have a little bit, we have a better chance of being able to battle these mental gymnastics they try to make us do, we still get infected a little bit. It chips away at us a tad bit at a time. That's where we spend the majority of our day. Now, I'm not saying that these HR policies are responsible for a majority of the work atmosphere that you have, but it does make a huge difference. Oftentimes, people in the workplace are so afraid to talk about different topics because of our HR policies. Some of these talking points or these topics might be, wow, you know, I saw Sarah yesterday, and you know, she was really fat. You have to hush about that. You can't say that out loud, right? That's wrong. It's bad. HR might actually be able to do something to you for saying it on multiple occasions, especially if it offends Brooke, who's over there on the far side of the office, who's the size of a humpback whale, right? It's so bad. But that goes to another institution. Another reason you can't say that in the workplace is because everyone else around you has been socialized in such a manner that they also genuinely believe that you can't say those things. You have to be quiet about it. Shh. Don't say that. You can't talk about Brooke. You can't say that Brooke is fat. Okay, of course, if she's in the office, you shouldn't be talking about her. But someone who doesn't work with you, who they don't even freaking know, I don't know, Derek from Walmart. Yesterday, I was walking around, saw Derek from Walmart, who's 250 pounds of not pure muscle, you know, fat. And you say that, you know, yeah, I saw this guy, man, Derek, he was so fat, it was crazy. And everyone freaks out. The whole room goes silence. You've broken some kind of rule. You've done something wrong, and you're kind of like, what is it exactly? You've broken a social rule. Because everyone else in that room has been socialized to think that certain words aren't allowed, certain behaviors aren't allowed. But notice that a lot of these behaviors and ways of talking that you notice that aren't going to be allowed are a liberal's dream. If the liberals could dream and have some kind of policy in a workplace of what shouldn't happen, you would think, wow, a progressive liberal must have socialized all of us. Wow, a progressive liberal must have made up these HR policies. Holy smokes, were all your teachers progressive liberals? Why are you all so scared to have real conversations and say real words that have real meaning? Why? Because of these progressive liberalized institutions. We are literally all being socialized and indoctrinated with more progressive liberal values than conservative values from the time we are in public school to the time we finish our higher education. Because the next institution is colleges. Colleges are the next institution that are captivated by progressive liberals. I went to college in freaking Montana. Sure, I went in a more liberal city, so that one, maybe there's going to be more liberal professors. But even in Kalispell, Montana, the amount of liberal professors was actually shocking. I was like, no freaking way. How are there so many of them? Well, it turns out, and I want you to verify this, don't take my word for it. The last time that I read about this, it seems that more progressive liberals are actually interested in our secondary, primary, and higher education systems. They're more likely to apply for those kinds of jobs. So that's one reason we would have more of them. We don't have enough Republicans or conservatives who are applying for those jobs. And then when we do, remember that so many of the superintendents and principals are liberal, and I think it's superintendents and principals who are responsible for the hiring of teachers, or is it school board members? Either way, it would seem to be that whoever is responsible for it are hiring liberal teachers at a higher percentage. That one, I'm going to have to do more research on, so I won't make that a claim right now, but that's my suspicion. And I'm not sure if I have reasonable suspicion yet. I want to be honest with you about it. I'll be right back. All right. I'm back. So we just left off about the higher education system, about the institutions. I think we're at a really good place. I'm trying to think if there's any more that I really need to cover. I think what we've covered so far really gives you a good idea about why more sheep are produced in society than shepherds. And what I mean by that, I want to correct it. What I mean by that is why we don't see the percentage of shepherds that we would expect to see. What I'm saying is there are not as many shepherds in society, in my opinion, as there should be. There should be more. But our institutions that have captivated our children and our teens because of progressive liberal ideologies, because of this, our society is producing less shepherds than what we would want. I think this is something that we also saw in the polls. We've seen an increase. Well, now it's fluctuated, but for a little bit there, during Obama's term, we saw an increase in the support for progressive liberalism. We noticed that young people had been captivated by these institutions, and they were more likely than in the past to vote Democrat. Something had changed. Was it the failure of Republicans? Well, yes. But you have to understand how much of a grip that Democrats have on our education system. They have won that battle. We used to spank kids in school. We can't even do that anymore. Have you ever looked at the Department of Child Safety, or CPS, and you look at their rules and their policies for child neglect and child abuse? It's like, holy crap, dude. What pink-haired, freaking 5 piercings on my ear, piercings on my nose, bull ring, freaking weird progressive liberal woman made these policies? Who freaking hired her? I know I didn't. So who the frick did? Who allowed her to make these policies that we're seeing about the way parents discipline their children? the freaking hell is going on? Are you starting to see in how many areas of your life that you can see pure Democrat, progressive, liberal victories in our institutions? Are you seeing it yet? Come on now. You should think that this is a real problem. If you think that Israel is such a problem, you should start looking at these institutions that you've lost. Those are real problems. Oh wait, shoot. But the Jews own those institutions. That's right, my principal was a Jew. Right. No, he frickin' wasn't. My principal was not a Jew. Okay. The people who built the school's a Jew. Oh my gosh, bro. It just never ends. It just never ends. It's so hard to even entertain this crap anymore. It really is. It really is. We all know that the human existence and who has control over us and what is a lot more complex than a small little country of freaking Jewish people. It's a lot more complex than that. All right. I think we're nearing our end of our conversation for today. I want you to take 10 minutes, heck, take 2 if you don't got 10, and think, what institutions have the Republicans won? And what institutions do the Republicans have this strong hold on? And let me know. Let me know. Give it a thought and let me know. Because when I think of institutions that Republicans have won and that they're keeping a strong grip on, well, none come to mind. No, none really come to mind. I can't really think of any spaces that you go in public that you go, wow, a Republican must have been in charge of making this. It used to be, with the exception of our military, our police force, so all the shepherd jobs, yeah, it used to be the case that Republicans had I think Republicans are still winning those, but at a much smaller margin than they should be. Well, those HR kind of policies have impregnated our military. They've impregnated our police force. All of those shepherd-like jobs in those institutions that protect us or help us in society that conservatives, Republicans typically dominate in, have been impregnated by liberal ideologies. They've snuck it in so well. And Republicans just said, all right, it's not that bad, right? I mean, these definitions are okay. They're just small, minor differences. If you're just a kind man who minds his own business, why would you get in trouble for these kind of HR policies? I want you to see here that these HR policies are an infringement of your free speech. I know it's a private workplace and the workplace can decide for itself what speech is allowed and isn't. So private workplaces can absolutely decide what kind of free speech you have or don't have. Let's agree on that. But a lot of these companies, I'm telling you, are conservative Republican companies that have no such policies on your free speech. Yet, they will tell you what kind of free speech you should have because of their HR policy. Do you see the way that progressive liberals have gone around and impregnated our system? They have cracked down on your free speech by these HR policies that are accepted by almost 100% of companies that you come across. You'll have the most Republican, conservative kind of owners implementing the oddest, liberal, progressive kind of HR policies. But I mean, what else are they going to do, right? They don't want to get sued. So then that goes into our next institutions. They've impregnated our civil court institutions, because I'm talking about being sued, not typically criminal liable for what happens in the workplace, but civilly liable. So they've impregnated those institutions. We're losing those institutions. Now, I really want you to think about that. Why are Republicans losing like this? Why aren't they just as influential? Why are conservatives losing? Especially if what I'm saying is right, that there are way more shepherds that are conservative or Republicans than there are progressive liberals. And that's why we see so many institutions like the police force, military, that have a higher percentage of conservatives than not. Then why are we losing? I mean, aren't those the people that we would look up to? Aren't those the people that protect society? I mean, if those people, that's such a small percentage, are responsible for why why other countries look at America and think, wow, this is a shepherd. If such a small percentage are responsible for that, then why isn't that small percentage able to raise a higher percentage of shepherds? What's the disconnect? Surely if you can defend, if you can protect, well then you can bring up and raise. But that's not the case. That's not the case. Because Republicans and conservatives have lost those institutions. They allowed it, now they've lost it, and they have no plans to really do anything about it. They're just okay with it. So if there's a way in which Republicans and Democrats are the same in this manner, it's that they seem to be okay with the way these institutions are. As a majority. That's not their biggest concern. Rather, their biggest concern is that Israel is controlling the world. But if Israel is controlling the education system, then that's why if you knock off Israel, then our education system will get better, right? No, we'll talk about this. That's called passing the buck. That's called passing the buck. I'm going to remind you in the episode why you are not better than a Jew. No, you're not. The likelihood that you're any better than a Jew is pretty dang unlikely. This episode has been a ton of fun. I want you to think about these things that I've said, because you're being screwed over. And I want you to see it. I truly want you to see it. Because if we're going to really change anything, the first step is admitting that there's a problem. The first step is stepping away from these silly conspiracy theories and looking at real problems that we can actually all observe and that we all actually have evidence for. We are all seeing what the public education system is doing. We've all met those crazy liberal teachers. We've seen the videos about the books that they're reading to children. We've seen the evidence for cat litter boxes in public schools. We've seen public schools' policies on boys and girls' locker rooms and restrooms. We've seen all these things. Those things really matter. And Republicans and Democrats are different. If you're a Republican and you're okay with the way those institutions are running, then sure, maybe you are the same as a Democrat. But if you're not, and you identify as a Republican or a conservative, then holy smokes, wow. We've just found another difference, huge difference, between Republican and Democrats. Those differences are just going to keep coming because they are very different. Now, they might both be losers, but they're different kinds of losers. Enjoy your day. Thanks for coming. And take some time to turn these things in your brain and think it over, mull it over. Have a great day.